whatever you wind up doing is exactly what you should be doing.
And I have not behaved one single day of my life. Not one day of my life have I behaved, and I am fine.
I need your help. I can't tell you what it is. You can never ask me about it later, and we're gonna hurt some people.
Whose car are we gonna take?
Thank you for joining us on the Nikki Medoro Show. Thank you. It's going to be an interesting day. As I was teasing yesterday, in about a half hour or so, we are going to be joined by Palestinian-American Amer Zahr. He's a writer, again, a comedian, a law professor. He was a Bernie Sanders surrogate in Michigan. You can follow him at amerzahr.com. And he has been really outspoken regarding the war between Israel and Hamas. And so I have a number of questions that I want to ask. I love everybody. I'm over being nervous about it. I was talking to Kim before the show, Kim. It's more along the lines of, I don't want to be misconstrued given the texts and the emails that I received when I was teasing this, but it is what it is. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to hear his answers, and that's it. I think we could all be mature and respectful. And yes, so that's going to happen in about a half hour or so. There was a few things I wanted to talk about. Jefferson Graham also, I'm hoping to still have time to do him. He comes on Thursdays because today is the day he's going to show off his trip to Kim's neighborhood in Petaluma. So he has a video that he's debuting on Photowalks TV. And so that'll be fun to watch. I just love your town, Kim. I think it's so cute. I've never been to Petaluma.
Oh, really?
I mean, I'm sure I've driven maybe through it. I don't even know.
I've been to San Jose.
There's a difference. There's a difference between San Jose and Petaluma.
You're gonna have to get yourself up here.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's just I never go to the North Bay. Why would I go to the North Bay?
That's how I feel about the South Bay. Like I have no reason to go.
There's no reason.
Except for you. You're my reason.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think you would love it here. I'll take you wine tasting. Maybe we'll walk around town. I mean,
what's funny about wine though? I don't drink. I don't drink wine, so if I went wine tasting with you, Kim, it would be like wine at 9. I would just be a.
That would be it.
Yeah, I think so. I think it goes straight to my head. You know.
You take a sip and spit.
Who spits? That's
a lot of people.
Just
spit.
Drink it.
If you're going wine tasting and you're going to an event like a barrel tasting event or a big event where you want to go to a lot of different wineries and maybe you're in the market to buy, right? Because you're going to want to taste a lot of them. You got to spit. Otherwise, you're going to a third winery. You're going to be stumbling out of there.
That's what happens, basically.
Okay, well, plan on only 3 wineries for
Nikki. Just rolling me out of the winery. Exactly. No, I have before. But honestly, if you see me spit out the wine, I didn't like it.
Oh.
I know people like, ooh, I like it. And they spit it out. It's like, well, I'm just going to swallow it. That's what she said. All right. Before we get to any of that, I have a few things to do, of course, before our interview at 9:30. But click that thumbs up button before to show your support for the show. I should say the super chat is also live. It's a way for you to support the show during the show. If you watch live every day, which so many of you do, pardon me. Just look for the $sign under the live chat box and you can throw us a super sticker. A super comment we'll read live on air if you do it during the live broadcast. And of course, our Patreon is up and running. We appreciate all our Medorables. So go to theNikkiMedoroShow.com. TheNikkiMedoroShow.com. Our Patreon link is there. It's a one-time a month payment. And if you love PayPal, and I know so many of you do, just go to PayPal.com. Actually, the easiest way to do it is go to PayPal.com. Click the send button and then just put in the email, the Nikki Medoro Show at gmail.com. And and so we really appreciate it. We need to keep the lights on, as they say, and I love growing our community, which is steadily growing. You know, our subscriber numbers go up. So tell your family, tell your friends that we do this cool thing every single morning right here on YouTube. A couple of things with old Trumpy boy. Apparently he had a big old hissy fit yesterday in front of the judge. Shocking. He's totally innocent. In the middle of the night, he's ranting on Truth Social. Presidents need total immunity, even for things that may have crossed the line. Now, when we talk about total immunity for a president, I think there's a difference between, for instance, like what we're going to be talking about, the decisions that a president makes while in office, let's say regarding war and things like that, right? I mean, depending on what side of the line you stand on, you could believe that the president is in the wrong. He needs immunity for that. But like they were mentioning in the court case, he can't order the SEAL team to murder a political opponent, and because he's president, he gets total immunity. That's BS. If you break the law as it is, then there should be a consequence. Mitt Romney, did you see this? So he was being interviewed by CNN, and he was being asked for his reaction to the fact that Trump, handedly won the Iowa caucus, even though, again, only 15% of Republicans actually voted in the caucus. So to say, oh my God, it was a landslide, whatever. Okay, fine. But anyways, Romney was talking about the fact, being asked about the fact that Trump had handily won. Manu Raju wrote on X with CNN, just asked Mitt Romney about the Iowa caucus entrance poll showing a majority of GOP caucus goers did not believe that Joe Biden was elected legitimately. I think a lot of people in this country are out of touch with reality and will accept anything Donald Trump tells them. That's what Mitt Romney said. He says, you had a jury. Listen to this. Mitt Romney says, you had a jury that said that Donald Trump raped a woman, and that doesn't seem to be moving the needle.
It's crazy.
Like, that's insane. They don't believe it. They're Trump said that he didn't do it. Trump, like, look at her. Like, they just start spouting Trumpisms, right? And it's insane. Absolutely. Like, Mitt Romney is absolutely right. There's a lot of things about today's electorate that have a hard time understanding. And the fact that Donald Trump can be deemed a rapist and it doesn't impact his popularity among MAGA, who love to wear the cross and be all for morality and blah, blah, blah. And they just say it's a lie. And they just don't see the hypocrisy. It just blows my mind.
Remember back in the olden days when one picture of a lady sitting on your lap could kick you out of the presidential race? What, Gary Hart?
Pretending to grab a woman's breasts. Remember? Yep. I mean, you're gone. You're gone. And now you can literally be a rapist. And if your last name is Trump, it's A-okay. Now, I don't think that any politician can get away with what Trump gets away with. I don't think that we've gone that far down, but it's disgusting. It's disgusting. But at the same time that Mitt Romney's saying that, at the same time that Donald Trump's having a sissy fit, and this is so, I hesitated to even bring it up because who the hell knows, right? And I do feel it's a little bit childish, name calling, Trump-like, let's say, okay? Here's a picture of Donald Trump. There's something on his hand. It appears, at least according to James
Carville. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
No, James Carville, Democrat, speculated that Donald Trump has these sores on his hands, and then it's syphilis. So apparently he was waving, Trump was waving as he left the New York City courthouse in the E.G. Carroll trial. And the marks on his hands are showing, as you can see. So Carville says, he says this, if you go on the Drudge Report, there's a story about Trump having hand cuts. They don't look like cuts to me. They look like sores. So he's like, I asked a number of doctors what medical condition manifests itself through hand sores. And the answer is immediate and unanimous: secondary syphilis. I think Carville says, I think there's a good chance this man has the clap, and I don't think he's being particularly secretive about it.
When you have syphilis, isn't that the one where your brain kind of goes a little bit wonky?
Is it? I'm not up on my syphilis facts. I apologize.
If that's the case, it would fit.
Secondary syphilis. I doubt Melania's putting out. I mean, I think where is Melania? Like, can you imagine?
Today, Melania is at her mother's funeral.
Oh, that's today.
The funeral, by the way.
Right.
The mother, who on her deathbed was, knocking on death's door, and Trump still has the New Year's Eve party at Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, of course he
So,
does.
of course, he doesn't care, but then now, of course, it's a big deal that the trial is ongoing today, and so we have to postpone the trial for my mother-in-law's funeral. The
Right, his whole
mother-in-law
trip.
where she was croaking and you couldn't be bothered to stop the party, but okay. Got
Yeah.
it.
Now I will say he tries to stall. He doesn't have to be at all these hearings. He's making his choice. He's calculated. Is this SOARS? Is it marker somebody was mentioning? Is it something else? I don't know. I don't know what that finger is. But I think
Well done, Randy.
Syphilis Dawn was trending on X, which I can only imagine was driving Trump nuts. Because apparently he's a hypochondriac, right? Like he doesn't like germs or whatever. So yeah, I don't know, man. I just wish this guy would go away.
If you don't like germs, then why are you doing the do with the porn stars?
True. I mean, I don't know, dude. I don't know. I don't get it. That whole Stormy Daniels case also right around the corner. This guy has so many legal problems that, again, find someone else, MAGA. I just don't understand it. I really, really don't. Doug's like, it's ketchup from Mickey D's. Ooh. Again, it doesn't look good. It does look like SOARS to me, but who knows? I don't know what it is. I just think that it's funny. Like James Carville's like, I've been texting everybody. Like he's just being a bit of the, the bully here, which whatever. Donald Trump is a bully himself. So who cares?
Maybe you look at the contrast between his real skin color and his face.
I know, right? I mean,
maybe it's blisters from where he holds the golf club.
Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah. Now you're giving me ideas of what, but doesn't he? Yeah, he wears gloves though. I mean, shouldn't gloves help with that?
Maybe on all his time off lately, he's between trials and rallies, he's been playing a lot of golf.
Yeah,
or syphilis is always a good answer.
Debbie's like, there's certainly not blisters from physical work. Well, I don't know what kind of work is leading to that, but anyways, not the most serious of stories. I wish this guy would go away. We'll see how it is, but there, ladies and gentlemen. Syphilis Dawn. I did want to get to another story, but I want to do some headlines because again, we have the interview at 9:30. If we have time, I was surprised. Maybe we'll do it after Jefferson Graham. I was a bit surprised about Governor Newsom saying he would veto the bill regarding tackle football.
I'm so glad you brought this up because I'm shocked.
And then I sat with it for a sec. Okay. And here's my thing. I think that there should be rules on how old you have to be to play full contact tackle football. Okay, I do. I wouldn't let my children play tackle football. But again, I'm not also faced with the decision because my kids, and specifically my son, has zero desire to play football. Now, would I feel differently if my son was into football, like my nephew? Okay, my brother's son, huge football player, like great football player too, has played tackle, has had a couple of concussions. Okay. And yeah, I don't know how I would feel, but here's the thing. And I have this conversation with my brother, Kim, whose decision should it be? Knowing, I don't think any parent doesn't know the risks of tackle football at this point. So who should decide if the kid can play tackle football, the government or the parent?
What's the parent's motivation for having their kid play a sport
where they can get their right? You can live vicariously, but who should make that decision? When we talk about parental rights, and I'm not using it in the gross, disgusting way. I'm talking about who makes decisions of what my kid can do. I'm kind of saying, you know what? If you want to put your child's brain at risk, that's on you. That's on you. I don't agree with it, but it's not my kid. So, I mean, that's kind of how I'm coming down on it a little bit. What about you?
I disagree.
Okay. Why?
I feel like parents that make that choice don't have a good rationale for doing so. And when you get to a point where some kids can and some kids can't, right? Then there's like this peer pressure to want to do it. And then maybe parents are pressured to want to do it. I don't know. I feel like I err on the side of preserving the health of children.
Yeah.
And so if we know that clocks to the head, especially the younger you are, the worse it is, are not boding well for people, then why don't we want to protect our children? It's like saying, you get to you get to choose. Do you want your child to play with lawn darts and sharp knives, or
Right.
just know, like, there are certain things that we know don't make sense. Maybe we didn't know once upon a time, but today we know.
Okay.
And so why
But
wouldn't we wanna help that? Don't you'll think your kid's gonna grow up to be this NFL star, maybe they
right.
will. You think that, you wanna raise a tough kid, maybe you do. But you also wanna raise a kid who isn't beating their brain into a disease that could cause them mental health issues down the road.
Mhm.
And so if we know that, then we have an opportunity to an obligation rather, to protect kids. No. Mm-mm.
So here's and I agree with everything you said. But because I agree with you that I wouldn't let my kid play tackle football, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, football in and of itself, the scholarships, the funding, the opportunities, whether they go to the NFL or not, right? It's large. There's a large base there for football. So it's not like you're removing that. So if California, for instance, and this is why I bring it up, if California gets rid of tackle football, you're telling all of the kids that live in California, you can no longer, and you won't be able to compete with other kids who have had the opportunity and the experience to play tackle football to get those scholarships, to
And
go
how
to those colleges.
and how sad for them that their parents, their states didn't step up to protect them like our state is stepping up to protect our kids.
I just feel, again, I agree with you. I do. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I just feel like if anybody is going to protect the children first, it should be the parents, and they should know better. They should know better. I wouldn't let my kid play because I understand CTE. I understand that my kid, sadly, if they do have CTE and it leads to the tragic end that we've heard about in the news so much, I'm not going to know it until they're dead. And that's
Mhm.
awful. The change in personality, the mood swings, the anger, all of these things I think should be enough for parents to make that decision. But to be a state out of 50 that says our kids are not going to be able to compete, I don't know about taking away that power from the parents. I
I
don't
wonder
know.
if you interviewed Mrs. Kelsey, the mother of Travis Kelsey, and
Jason, yeah.
yeah, what she would think. If she worries about it, if she lays awake at night and worries that she made the wrong, I mean, obviously her kids are successful, but if she worries about their health.
Right. I'm sure she does. I'm sure every time they go out on the field, she worries about it though. Now, PT makes a good point. I have a 16-year-old relative that has multiple concussions in both gymnastics and competitive diving. That's the other part to this. Soccer,
Mhm.
there's all kinds of sports, and yet they're just focusing on tackle football because I feel
Mhm.
like, well, one, football heads and shoulders
Right.
ahead for these scholarships and all, just attention, right? Um, versus everything else. So it is one of those things where are they being unfairly singled out when a lot of sports lead to concussions? And that's a valid concern. Doug says, I agree. Athletics, though, in general, are good for health. They are. I'm not saying that. My kid Dylan played flag football for one season. He did not care
Mhm.
for it. I put Dylan in all kinds of sports. Nothing took. So he does parkour now. And he's never had a concussion. He's never whacked his head. But I bet you as he gets better, he might fall. He might whack his head. Do I not let him do parkour anymore because he might whack his head?
Mhm.
No. But the opportunity to whack your head or get really hit hard, exponentially higher in football. It's
Mhm.
literally in the game plan, right?
And I think that's the point. I mean, I also let my son play basketball, but the chances of getting hit or having an injury, like a head injury, a serious head injury, like like you would receive in football, different in basketball. And so it sucks that it happened to you, but the chances that that's going to happen are much lower. I
Right.
remember a story. I'll never forget this story. I think I was sent to cover it, and that's why it affected me more. At Marin Catholic in Marin County High School, um, there was a football player who was hit in the face with a baseball, a baseball player at a baseball game,
Oh.
and it was like you threw this pitch and it came back at him and smacked him right in the face, and he was horribly injured. I don't remember if he survived it or not.
Oh
It was
God.
awful. It was
Yeah.
awful. All sports
Yeah.
have
Have
their
risks.
risks,
Yeah.
right? My daughter loves to ride horses. She fell off one day. Could she have smacked her head? She was wearing a helmet, but she could have had a concussion, right? I mean, so there's risks everywhere, but there's higher risks in a sport like football. We know this, or lacrosse or
Yeah.
soccer. We know this.
Rugby, all of these sports, especially these full contact sports. Now, do I think that I'm sorry, I think that tackle football, full contact football should start later. You can teach kids a position and all those sorts of things without having them full on tackle each other. And I love that, the coach teaches them to tackle the right way until the game's on the line, right? Until the game's on the line. And then you put everything and your head into it. Randy says high school girls soccer and boys ice hockey have concussion rates almost as high as high school football. Yeah. I mean, there are other sports that do it, and I wouldn't want to take away all sports just because of the risk of this. Everything has a risk, but yeah, I kind of feel like, well, one, Newsom's vetoed it, or is going to veto it if it went to his desk, so he said he's not going to sign it. Deidre says my daughter had several concussions from volleyball. Yeah. I mean, again, so if we already know these things, is it fair to single out football?
Yeah, because it's the they're beating each other. They're set to the field to smack into each other as hard as they can. Yeah. No.
Spencer, I whacked my head more partying than sports. I no longer party. All right, let's get some headlines in. We may revisit this later on because we do have an interview with Amer Zahr. He is a Palestinian-American. He's a law professor. He's a writer. He's a comedian. And we're going to talk about the Israel-Hamas war. And as you saw in the preview of the show, one of my main questions is, what does a free Palestine look like? He had a video that I saw on his socials, and follow him on social media. I mean, he makes so many videos if you're interested in more of what he has to say. But he says we have to be focused on a free Palestine. Just keep saying it over and over and over again. And that is why my first question is what is that? What does that mean? Does that mean no Israel? What does it mean? And yeah, so I invite you to a very respectful and I'll be very genuine with my questions. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments and we'll try to get to them. All right. Okay. So let's do some headlines. And of course, my interview with Amer Zahr is next right here on the Nikki Medoro Show.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
More than 100 million Americans could be getting a fresh blanket of snow before the weekend. Forecasters say 2 back-to-back storms will spread at least 3 inches of snow across some 18 states from Wyoming to New York today and tomorrow. Travelers should be ready for more delays at airports and on the highways. You know how it goes. Attorney General Merrick Garland says he told families of the victims of the 2022 Uvalde, Texas school shooting their loved ones deserve better. A Justice Department report says the shooting could have been stopped sooner. The DOJ released a nearly 600-page report today detailing the response to the shooting that killed 21 and injured 17 more.
77 minutes. 77 minutes it took. I was reading some of that report this morning. And it's just the whole idea of, he was barricaded. We had a barricaded suspect versus an active shooter, even though they had students texting and all sorts of things from the classroom.
Yeah. If that's my kid.
My God. It's insane. Yeah. It's insane. And like CNN did an interview with this 11-year-old that survived, had escaped. And he's like, I just wish I could go back to 4th grade and just wake up from this awful dream. He's like, I am not the same kid. And this is still a kid. He's like, I'm not the same kid anymore. And it's just awful. It still makes my blood boil.
Listen, I understand being scared of things. I mean, there's a reason I'm not a police officer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know. So in one way it's hard to judge, but in another way, that was your job. And I would like to think that whether I was a police officer or not, if I knew children were in danger in a building,
I'd
I'd
be
be going
running
in.
in.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
A House panel is expected to vote on an impeachment resolution of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas January 31st now. The House Homeland Security Committee is holding its final Mayorkas impeachment hearing today. CNN reports with the committee vote planned for later this month, floor action on the possible impeachment could happen as early as February. The New York writer who accused Donald Trump of sexual assault is testifying in her defamation case. E. Jean Carroll on the stand to answer more questions from Trump's lawyer. She testified yesterday about how his statements calling the case a lie and a hoax shattered her reputation and led to threats to her safety. Trump has already been found guilty of defamation and liable for sexually abusing Carroll decades ago in a department store dressing room. The question now is, how much should he have to pay for that? The clock is ticking on Congress to avoid a government shutdown. The House and the Senate are racing to pass funding a funding extension before tomorrow's deadline and before a snowstorm hits Washington, D.C. as well. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announcing yesterday the Senate will vote on a continuing resolution this afternoon. The House is then expected to vote on the measure later this afternoon or early this evening once it's passed by the Senate. There are families of American hostages being held by Hamas set to meet with the White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan Thursday. Several of the families are in Washington, D.C. this week, around the 100-day mark since the hostages were taken after Hamas's attacks on Israel October 7th. 4 Americans have been let go since that war started, and the United States believes 6 more Americans remain hostages in Gaza. So the race is on to get them out. Thousands of anti-abortion activists will be descending upon Washington, D.C. tomorrow. Ooh, a snowy Washington, D.C. It's the annual March for Life. If the event's record go around since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, but organizers say they are aiming to change the culture by making abortion unthinkable. Well, folks will first gather on the National Mall near the Museum of Natural History for the March for Life rally at noon local time. Maybe they'll get snowed out.
It's going to be cold. It's
I don't
definitely going to
know.
be a cold one.
The American Express is underway in California. This week's PGA Tour event taking place at 3 different courses in La Quinta, southwest of Palm Springs. Last year's winner will not be participating in this year's tournament as defending champ John Ram bolted for LIV Golf. That's the Saudi Arabian-backed golf thing back in December and then was suspended by the PGA Tour. So I guess wide open as far as contenders go this time around. This report is sponsored by you, which means that we count on you to help us fund the show. Please find us at thenikkimedoroshow.com, thenikkimedoroshow.com. That's where the Patreon and the PayPal links are located and a lot more as well. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Nikki Medoro Show.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, so let's get into this. Now, I always appreciate our friend John Rothman, who comes in with us every Friday. And obviously, he talks about politics. He's a political expert, and he talks a lot about the war between Israel and Hamas. But I wanted to get a different point of view. I want to say thank you to our friend who's a big supporter of the show, Sam, who has connected me with, and I'm going to pronounce your name, Amer Zahr, the white way, as you love to say on your videos, because I'm not going to butcher it for you. If you watch his videos, he always tries to teach us how to say his name properly. I'm not even going to try, my friend, but I appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I was telling before the show, you're Palestinian-American, you're a law professor, you were a Bernie Sanders surrogate, you're a writer, you're a comedian. You have a long laundry list. But if you could, before we get into the nuts and bolts of your perspective on what's happening, just give people a little bit more background on who you are and what you do.
Well, I am Palestinian. I'm American. My parents are both Palestinian refugees, ethnically cleansed from their homeland. My dad was born in the city of Jaffa in 1948, which is now taken over by Tel Aviv and Israeli control. I was born in Jordan. I came to America when I was 3. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And then when I was 18, I was like the only Arab kid in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, or in my little suburb. So when I was 18, I wanted to go to a big college. And I came to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And Michigan is also known as having the largest concentration of Arab Americans anywhere. Right. So I kind of wanted to come to my people, you know, like I'm here. I live now in Dearborn. Dearborn is like, you know, it's like Arabs Harlem. I mean, it's like what Harlem is to black people, what Miami is to Cubans, Dearborn is to Arabs. So okay. I've lived here now for a long time. And yeah, I'm also a graduate of the University of Michigan Law School as well. I have a master's degree in something they call the Middle East and North African Center as well. And so I studied deeply the history. I taught it. But I got into comedy in my last year of law school, and now I've been doing stand-up comedy as my main gig since about 2005 or 6.
Sweet. Okay, so I wanted you to kind of give a little bit of your resume, as they say, because I want people to understand that you know your stuff. It's not like we're just pulling somebody right off the street to talk about something like this. But I will first ask you this before I get into more meaty questions.
Yeah.
How difficult is it to have a conversation right now about what's going on between Israel and Hamas? For you as a Palestinian, how difficult is it?
Well, it starts with the framing, right? So I think that while I'm sure you come to this with a open mind, even I would push back a little bit on the framing of Israel and Hamas. You know, it's not a war between Israel and Hamas. It's a war between Israel and the Palestinian people. And it's been an ongoing thing. And October 7th is a part of it. But one of the mistakes we're making is looking at October 7th in a vacuum. You know, history is important and we have to learn it.
Can I just ask you real quickly?
2 million people in Gaza.
Okay, just real quickly, because again, I'm learning as you are. So you're saying it's between Israel and the Palestinian people. So do you see Hamas and the Palestinian people as one and the same? Am I supposed to, as an American, am I supposed to? Okay, so can you differentiate that for me?
Hamas is a political movement, you know, an Islamic political movement within the Palestinian people. The predominant political movements within the Palestinian people are secular. Like in the PLO is ruled by a party called Fatah, which is where Yasser Arafat and the current leader of the PLO and the PA come from, which is a secular movement. Hamas is a religious movement within the Palestinian people. So Hamas are Palestinians, but they don't represent all Palestinians, just like no political party represents all Palestinians. And this political party, like many political parties, especially political parties that have existed under occupation, like the African National Congress. You know, the African National Congress was this huge movement and it had a militant wing, and Hamas has a militant wing. Now, if I'm a secular type guy. My dad is Christian. My mom is Muslim. I come from an interreligious Palestinian family. They're both Palestinian. If I, one day when we're free and we're voting for political parties, you know, I probably wouldn't vote for Hamas. You know, it doesn't represent my worldview. But they are a segment of the Palestinian people. But again, it would be too simple to say they're one and the same. You know, the Palestinian society has many different political movements, many different political parties, not just two like America, for instance. And Hamas is a minority political party inside our society.
But do you see that Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, or was that Palestinian people that attacked on October 7th?
I don't really accept that question. I mean, you know, okay. I mean, obviously Hamas undertook it operationally, and Hamas is Palestinian. So
right. Okay. Yeah, I guess, and I'm trying to
but
understand.
The war is clearly against all Palestinians. So there's 2.2 million Palestinians in Gaza. They don't all fall within the political leanings of Hamas. And what we see going on, again, you don't fight a political party through or what you think is a political problem through military means. That's really never worked. And so the war is clearly against all the people of Gaza who are all Palestinian, who are not all Hamas. I mean, we can agree on that principle. Okay. And so when they are carpet bombing entire residential areas and saying that they're doing things with precision, and then you see the pictures, of course, of entire residential areas razed to the ground, that is not a precise attack against a movement. that is a collective punishment, war of revenge, whatever you want to call it. But it's not a war against one group of people or to try to rid the area of one group of people. And now you have Israeli politicians openly talking about, moving, ethnically cleansing all 2 million people out of Gaza into Egypt and other places around the world. They're openly talking about that as what they would like to. The ruling party is openly talking about that.
We have a question from one of our viewers, and I hope this is okay to bring up questions from some of our viewers.
Sure.
And again, I'm reading these live to you, okay?
Sure.
Lori asks, especially since he refers to ethnic cleansing, do you feel betrayed by other Arab countries, and in particular by Jordan? Arab countries could have taken people and created a state.
Again, Arabs are obviously, everyone who lives in the Arab world, or most of the people who live in the Arab world are Arabs, and we have a connection to each other through language and culture and history, like Palestinians and Jordanians and Lebanese and Syrians, and from Morocco all the way to Iraq. But we're still from where we're from. So we're still from our villages and cities in Palestine, which are not the same as the villages and cities in Jordan or whatever. Mm-hmm. So this notion that we should just be taken in by other Arab countries, we're from where we're from. I mean, it's this, it would be like telling people, it would be like somebody taking over, Rwanda and telling the people in Rwanda, well, you're African. The people in Nigeria are African. Why don't you just go there? And they say, no, we're from here. We're from here. This is where we're from. This is where our history is from. So, there have been many conflicts and problems throughout the Arab world for centuries, just like any other part of the world, but not a massive ethnic cleansing like what Israel did in 1948 and continues to try to do until this day. In fact, the land of Palestine has only had really 3 major ethnic cleansing programs in its history. One of them was done by the Romans against the Jews, called the Bar Kokhba Revolt, about 100 years after Jesus, when the Romans decided to finally push down any Jewish presence in Palestine. The other one was the Crusades, which was done by Europeans in from the late 11th century through the 13th century. And then 1948 in Palestine. Other than that, Palestine has been a place where people have come and migrated. It's been a destination for centuries. We Palestinians today are a mixture of all the people that have been through the land, including Jews and including Arabs and including Greeks and Byzantines and Romans and Turks and everybody. We're a mixture of all those people. Our culture today is Arab. Our language is Arabic. But this notion that, well, all the Arabs are the same, so they should all just the Palestinians could be okay from just going from Nazareth or Jaffa or Haifa, just go to Jordan or go to Syria or go to Lebanon. It doesn't work like that. And no one would expect that of any other people.
What does free Palestine mean? And is it actually possible? So when you say, and I've watched some of your videos, and you urge people just keep saying free Palestine, what does that mean? Specifically also in relation to Israel.
Do you think free South Africa meant that white people had to lose their rights? Do you think that the civil rights movement in America in the 60s meant that white people had to lose their rights? Do you think that Black Lives Matter means no other lives matter? I mean, this is the ridiculousness of it. Yes, free Palestine from occupation, from apartheid, from racism. It doesn't. When you start to think that other people's freedom or a land's freedom or whatever it might be means a reduction of your own freedom, well, maybe that's because that's what you've been doing to other people. And maybe that's because, I don't know, I'm not a psychologist. I'm just a lawyer and a comedian, but I think that's called projection. I mean, do you know that in America, for instance, it is the Census Bureau has said that because of the sort of brownification of America over time, that white people will become a minority by 2042. So they'll become less than 50% of the population. Does that scare you, Nikki?
No.
Okay. Do you know who it does scare? It scares some segments of white people.
Right.
Because they were like, man, that's really scary. Now, why would you be scared? Why in America would you be scared of becoming a minority? Well, maybe it's because you know what has happened to minorities in America, and you say, well, I don't want to be a part of that. Well, to all the people who would like to oppress minorities, or to all the people who believe in in Zionism as a purely Jewish homeland. We must maintain a Jewish majority. Well, believe it or not, and to all the people who believed in apartheid or who believed in Jim Crow in America, you're not our example. We are not looking to oppress you. It is not our desire to oppress other people. It's our desire to get freedom for ourselves. So when we say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, that means for everybody. And if you don't think it means for everybody, well, that sounds like a you problem. It doesn't sound like a me problem.
Okay. So it's not, and again, because then people will use that slogan. We've seen it in Washington, D.C. We've seen it, where people use that phrase to mean that it's something anti-Semitic, that it means the destruction of Israel.
Well, no. People who are pro-Israel, as a rhetorical argument, try to characterize these things as anti-Semitic. So people aren't using it as anti-Semitism. I mean, again, people who are anti-Semitism is one of the tools that pro-Israel people wield to shut down debate and shut down any questioning of Israel. Well, if you question Israel, you're anti-Semitic. I don't know why that's true. If you question Saudi Arabia, you don't hate Muslims. If you question America, there are like, I don't know if you've ever looked at the flags of Europe. Okay, there's like 7 countries in Europe that have the cross on their flag. Did you know that? I mean, like Finland, Sweden, all these countries have the cross on their flag. Okay, if you are, which obviously is an ode to Christianity, if you are criticizing any of those countries, does that mean you hate Christians? I mean, it's just silliness. We are criticizing a policy of a country. And then people say to Palestinians, oh, you're singling out Israel. I mean, this is one of the crazy. Are we allowed to curse on this show?
Sure, no, just talk. Yeah,
yeah, it's okay. I don't want to. I was just thinking, like, if it comes up, I just want to know. I don't know if we're like.
Yeah,
I don't know if we're like.
YouTube. It's YouTube. They don't.
It's YouTube. Okay, it's not the FCC or anything. Okay.
No, it's not.
So, it's so crazy, right? I mean, Palestinians are mad at the people who oppressed us and kicked us out of our land and lived into our grandmother's houses and don't let us come back. They happen to be Jewish. They could have been anything. They could have been Muslims, they could have been Christians, they could have been Buddhists. We would be mad at the people who did that to us. I mean, saying that Palestinians are singling out Israel for being Jewish is like saying those 60 women are singling out Bill Cosby for being black. They're not singling out Bill Cosby for being black. They're singling out Bill Cosby because of what he did to them.
I see. Yeah.
He could have been anything, but it was because of what he did to them. And so this inserting religion into this just clouds the debate. And it's a way, look, it's a tool of the pro-Israel people. And by the way, some people on the pro-Palestine people make it about, on the pro-Palestine side of a minority, make it about religion too, and they're just as wrong. But making it about religion is a tool to sort of shut down the debate, right? If I say this is a religious conflict, and pro-Israel people do this, right? Say it's a religious conflict, it's been going on for years, and all, none of that's true. This is a modern grievance, right? But when you call it a religious conflict and label it that way, what does that do? That makes a lot of onlookers kind of check out, right? Because if somebody tells you it's a religious conflict, you say, "Oh, I don't want to have anything to do with that. I don't want to get, I mean, these religious people are crazy, right? I don't want to get into any of that. Religious people fight with each other over religion. I don't want to be a part of that." But when you start framing it as we Palestinians do in terms of civil rights and ethnic cleansing and apartheid, then it's something that becomes universal. And Israel doesn't want that. But of course, that's what it is.
But you said, and again, correct me because I'm learning today, but you said that Hamas is a religious group. They're not secular. And so if Hamas is behind, let's just do October 7th, then it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to people to believe that it is based on some sort of religious.
Only if you view October 7th in a complete vacuum.
Okay.
Only if you view October 7th in a complete vacuum and say history started October 7th. And again, only if you think Hamas as a political idea is representative of all Palestinians, which we know it's not. Right? The people who were standing on the White House lawn in 1993 with President Clinton shaking hands with Yitzhak Rabin were not Hamas. They were secular Palestinian leaders. Again, the people still in charge in Ramallah at the highest levels of the Palestinian National Authority, which is a different question in its own case, are secular, not Islamic based. So it's one movement. But again, history didn't start October 7th. Right? This is why you see Palestinian and Israel's response has not been. Israel's bombed churches. in Gaza. I mean, Israel has sniped people in churches. This has all been well documented in the media and by, third-party human rights organizations. So Israel's not even attacking it in a religious way, obviously, because to them, it's all Palestinians are the same. All Palestinians are terrorists. All Palestinians are human shields. So Hamas might be a political movement that is religious in its nature, but it's not representative of all Palestinians, not even the majority of Palestinians, and history didn't start October 7th. It's Nat Turner. Do you know who Nat Turner was?
Nat Turner. Let's remind people of who you're
Nat
talking
Turner was a slave.
about.
And in 1831 in Virginia, in 1831, he escaped from his slave owner's house, his master's house, and he got together with other slaves. And he had a rebellion, and it was very ugly. He went into white people's houses. He killed women and children. It was ugly. But nobody looks back at what Nat Turner did and say, because of what Nat Turner did, slavery was right. Because of what Nat Turner did, all black people should pay the price. In fact, many people look in American history today as the Nat Turner Rebellion as one of the most pivotal moments in American history of waking up the eyes of America to slavery. In fact, today, in many places in America, there are streets and parks named after Nat Turner. There was also something called the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, in where Jews armed themselves and fought back against their occupiers in the 40s in Poland. So these things happen. Now, if you want to get into, you look at Nat Turner, you look at the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, and you say, okay, these things might be terrible. They might be horrible, and some of the atrocities were committed. Yeah, it's terrible. But what are the conditions that lead to something like this? You cannot just look at them in a complete vacuum. Did you watch A Time to Kill? I don't know how old. I don't know how old. I want to ask
yes,
how old you are.
A Time to Kill. Yes.
You
I'm a Matthew McConaughey fan, so
okay,
good. I've watched everything. There he is, right there.
Okay.
So yeah.
There's literally a picture of Matthew McConaughey behind you, Nikki.
That's him.
That's a big, but that's a big fat wedding ring, right? I see on the finger.
Oh yeah, that's just this is just a daydream over here. That's fine.
Is he your hall pass? Have you got?
We've had this conversation because I got to meet him. My husband is fully aware of my daydream of Matthew McConaughey. It's okay.
So we won't get into that. Maybe that's another episode. I'm happy to come back at any time. I'm not a psychologist,
Perfect.
but I am a lawyer. If you ever need representation in family court.
Never. Love
okay,
my
sorry.
husband.
Okay, so
A Time to Kill.
A Time to Kill. I'm sure most people have heard of. I've seen it. If you haven't seen it, I might ruin it for you in the next couple minutes.
It's an old movie. You should have watched it by now.
1996, A Time to Kill. It's set in Mississippi. Matthew McConaughey is a white lawyer. Samuel L. Jackson is a guy named Carl Lee Haley. He's a black man. He's a black father. His daughter in the beginning of the movie is raped by white nationalists, white guys. Okay. And they're going to court, and there is a thought that they might get off. And he's worried about that. So what does he do? He sneaks into the courthouse, hides out with a gun, and jumps out when they're coming into the courthouse and shoots these two white men who raped his daughter, who have not even gone to trial yet. Right. He shoots them. And then he goes on trial. And Matthew McConaughey represents him. And Nikki, during the movie, was there any question that Samuel L. Jackson shot these guys?
No.
Was there any question that he planned to shoot these guys?
No.
Did he know what? Well, he planned it, right? I mean,
he brought the gun.
He had the gun. He was hiding out in the courthouse.
Yeah.
Did he mean to shoot them?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Were you rooting for him to get acquitted?
Yes, because we knew what happened in the past. But
whoa,
I understand and I totally understand the example and why you're using that. And I know that we can't look at October 7th. We can't look at a lot of things in a vacuum. I totally get what you're saying. At the same time, people are also horrified by what happened not only on October 7th, but everything that's come after it. I hate using the term both sides because I feel like it's demeaning of everything. But again, I want a ceasefire. I want things to stop.
Who doesn't want a ceasefire? Pro-Israel people. You're right. Ceasefire just means stop killing each other. Let's figure everything else out.
Yes.
Okay. Well, pro-Israel people are telling you that it's calling for a ceasefire is anti-Semitic. Calling for a ceasefire means you hate Israel. That's crazy. Yes, I agree with you. Ceasefire now. I've led marches here in Detroit. 25,000 people all got together on this unified message. Ceasefire now. I agree with you. Who are the people saying that they don't want a ceasefire? Supporters of Israel. Oh, a ceasefire is giving in to Hamas. A ceasefire means Hamas wins. Why? Hamas is a political problem. Everything that happened up to October 7th comes from political reasons. Yes, you have the firepower. You have the firepower to destroy Gaza. Good for you. You proved that.
Right.
What has it achieved? Nothing politically.
But do you think that Hamas, Israel wants to get rid of Hamas? They have said that unequivocally. They want to get rid of Hamas. Can you rid Palestine of Hamas without getting rid of all the Palestinian people?
I mean, did you hear the question you just asked? Are you saying that if getting rid of all the Palestinian people meant getting rid of Hamas, it would be worth it?
No, I'm asking you a question. People are saying we have to get rid of Hamas, who they blame for October 7th, right? They blame Hamas. And again, I
let me ask you as a moral matter. I mean, obviously, if you got rid of all the Palestinian people, you'd get rid of Hamas, obviously.
Which we don't want to happen.
So obviously, we don't accept that as a moral foundation. Obviously, we don't accept that getting rid of all the people to get rid of one political movement is okay, right? We all agree with that. Okay, fine. So Hamas is a political movement brought on by political conditions. It's an idea, just like any political movement. You don't get rid of it through bombing the hell out of it. Just doesn't matter. I mean, you might damage it tactically for a while. You might, and they've done this before. You might kill its leaders. Fine. But Hamas is not a guy in a building. Hamas is a political movement, just like any other political movement, which means it's solved through politics. It's solved through political solutions.
What's the political solution here?
And the occupation, and then let Palestinians try to decide their own future without any external problems, without the problems of a blockade for 17 years of Gaza, where the fishermen of Gaza couldn't go out more than a kilometer from the shores to catch the good fish, that they couldn't decide their own future as like what gets imported and exported from their own country. Everything is controlled by Israel. If you went into the Gaza supermarkets before October 7th, 80% of the products are Israeli because Israel decide what comes in and out of the Gaza Strip. It's a great economy for them. So take away the blockade, let people decide their own future. Let the people say, Israelis like to say, well, we left Gaza. No, you didn't. I mean, you might have moved out of the house, but you still decided what comes into the driveway, what goes into the mailbox, the Palestinians of Gaza. Do you know that Israelis who live on settlements right outside of Gaza have 5G internet on their phones? The Palestinians of Gaza have had 2G. I mean, that's like 2006 type stuff here in America. Why? Because Israel controls the bandwidth. When on October 9th, the Israeli defense minister comes on and says, we're shutting off the water and the fuel, the electricity. Well, why is he able to do that? Because they occupy those things. They control those things. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to say, we're shutting off the water, the fuel, and the electricity. And guess what? They did. So, I mean, again, and they shut off the internet. They shut off the data from the phones whenever they want to. Why? Because they control the air, the sea, the land. Yeah, they might not have their people physically in there, but that's not the point. If they control everything that comes in and out, they control everything above you. That's occupation. And so that definitely is not freedom and self-determination for the Palestinians in Gaza. And those same things happen in the West Bank at varying degrees. So, I mean, we are not talking about a people who's been free to make their own decisions and determine their own history. In other words, self-determination at all since 1948. And so when Israel says, hey, we left in 2005, I mean, this is BS, to use a political term. And they are basically denying history and trying to whitewash it to say, well, October 7th happens just out of some vacuum, right? Because Hamas and Palestinians hate Jews for being Jews. I mean, again, if Palestinians hated Jews for being Jews, or Arabs, as Israel likes to say, hated Jews for being Jews, or all the Muslims in the world, as Israel sometimes like to say, hated Jews for being Jews, then there would be a lot more incidents throughout the world every single day, right? I mean, Palestinians there's probably, we don't know for sure, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 million Palestinians in America. There are, maybe a little less. There are at least 50 or 60,000 in the Bay Area, probably more, but at least 50 or 60,000 in the Bay Area. And there's a lot of Jews in the Bay Area. Are Palestinians attacking Jews in the Bay Area every day or every year? No, of course not. Of course.
Well, some people would say that there has been a rise in anti-Semitic behavior. There was the flyers outside Jewish restaurants in San Francisco. I mean, some people would point to those and be like, yes, the Jewish people are being targeted, whether it's from Palestinians or other Americans or whoever it is.
Okay. On October 14th, I believe it was October 14th, in Chicago, a 6-year-old Palestinian boy was stabbed 26 times by his landlord. You know that story, right, Nikki?
It's awful.
In over Thanksgiving weekend, 3 Palestinian college students were shot in Burlington, Vermont. You know that story, don't you?
Yes.
Okay. So the truth is, since October 7th in America, the most violent things, and it's not a contest. I don't want to make it a contest. But the truth is that since October 7th in America, the most violent things have happened to Palestinians and Arabs and Muslims as a result of the environment whipped up after October 7th. So if you want to point to that, I'll point to that. But I don't really like doing all of that. But if that's what we're going to do, then hey.
Okay, so the two-state solution, which is often brought up, is that a solution? I mean, do you feel that's a reality? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I don't believe in the two-state solution for many reasons. First of all, Palestinians belong to all of the land. Like, do you see this right here? I don't know if people are, but that's like the whole land of Palestine, which includes present-day Israel, West Bank, and Gaza.
Right.
Okay, Palestinians are from all of that land, so I'm interested in all of our rights and all of our land.
Where's Israel in that then?
I believe in a one-state solution. So Israel, West Bank, Gaza, all are unified under one government and secular, democratic, not a Jewish state, not an Arab state, a state of its citizens, and everybody has the same rights, like America. Or like South Africa solution, where people are treated as people because they're human beings and they have all the same rights, not Jews get more rights than non-Jews, which is the status quo in Israel today. The truth is, it operates like one state right now anyway. Israel controls effectively Gaza, like we explained. They effectively control the West Bank as well. In fact, there's 700 settlers living inside the West Bank. But Jews have more rights than non-Jews. This is clear. I mean, there have been a million human rights organizations that have done all the observations and studies on this and laid out all the laws. Human Rights Watch has called Israel apartheid. Amnesty International has called Israel apartheid. B'Tselem, which is the largest Israeli human rights group, has called Israel apartheid in the way that it conducts its governmental policies. And so it operates like one state now, except for you have roughly 14 to 15 million people living between the river and the sea. About 7 to 8 million of them are Jewish. About 2 million of them are Palestinians who are citizens of the Israeli state who live with less rights than Jews in that state. Then you have 3 million that live in the West Bank and 2 million who live in Gaza, who are stateless, don't have a state, don't have a valid passport that they can travel to in other places. The mobility is totally limited by Israel. The goods and the economic rights that they can have are totally limited by Israel. So it is one state now, but you have two sets. While the 700,000 settlers who live in the West Bank are considered Israeli, even though they live technically outside of Israel's borders. They're considered Israeli and operate under Israeli laws and Israeli protections and all that kind of stuff simply because they're Jewish. So when you have a bunch of people living in one piece of land that is effectively controlled by one government, and certain people have different rights than other people because of their race or their religion or their ethnic background or whatever, well, we have a name for that. That's called apartheid. And that's what's going on in Israel right now. It is effectively one state. So I believe in giving everybody the same rights in all the land. I don't know what's so radical about that. Yes, that would mean no Jewish majority, maybe. It would mean no Arab majority, maybe. But I don't believe in creating a state based on a majority of people who are all of the same background or religion or faith or whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think of America, obviously, we have many different religions and races and everything in this one country that we have. Although at the same time, I mean, and forgive me for kind of being blunt. I mean, is that realistic? I mean, do you really, that's a great, again, I mean this respectfully, that's a great idea. But given the history of conflict you just went over, how does that in any way, shape, or form happen? That would take a lot of forgiving, a lot of letting go, a lot of trust, a lot of, okay, I'm sorry.
Have you considered the possibility that conflict and tension exists in Palestine precisely because the solution I'm proposing hasn't been attempted? It's the only solution out of all the solutions that has not been attempted.
But who's going to lead that? Who's going to lead that solution?
Oh, great question. But it would have to be people of conscience and people who believe in democracy. Definitely not current Israeli leaders who say this is a Jewish state. Definitely not the current leaders who in 2018 passed the law in Israel that said Israel is the nation state of the Jews only and only is interested in self-determination of Jews only. That's a law passed by the government of Israel. Definitely not a state that says if you're a citizen of Israel and you marry somebody who's not a citizen, you can confer your citizenship upon them. That sounds like a pretty normal thing, just like we have America. You can confer your citizenship, if you're an Israeli citizen, upon a citizen of any other place, unless they're from Palestine. That's what the laws in Israel say. So if you are an Israeli citizen and you marry somebody from Sweden or Finland or anywhere in the world, you can make them an Israeli citizen. If you're an Israeli citizen and you marry someone from Ramallah or Gaza, you cannot make them an Israeli citizen. That sounds a little bit racist. That sounds a little bit terrible. I mean, who is that affecting? That's affecting the 2 million Palestinian citizens of Israel. Israel is an apartheid state. It operates with one set of rules. If you agree with that framework and you agree with that as a moral principle, then great. Israel's the place for you. You know who else agrees with that? ISIS. You know who else agrees with that? The Proud Boys. You know who else agrees with that? The people who held up apartheid in South Africa. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that as a principle. And so if you say to me, well, it won't work because they're fighting. They're precisely fighting now because no one has ever tried that.
Do you think Hamas wants that? Do you think Hamas wants what you want?
I don't know. I'm not a spokesperson for Hamas. But again, Hamas is not. This constant pointing to Hamas is a distraction. Hamas is one segment of Palestinian society. It is a force that did something on October 7th. But again, history did not start October 7th. And you
is Hamas holding hostages? I mean,
of course they're holding hostages.
So
I mean, there have been hostages held. I mean, look, of course they're holding. We don't have to play with. You don't have to question me on like whether I believe in facts. Of course they're holding hostages. But from what I understand now, the majority of the hostages left were military personnel taken on October 7th, and that's not the same as taking civilians on October 7th, as far as I'm concerned. So that's what we understand now. For instance, I think Israelis showed pictures of like 4 young women last week. They said, oh, these 4 women who are being held by Hamas. Yeah, it's terrible. They're soldiers. They were making TikTok soldier videos a few days before October 7th. And so, maybe Israel shouldn't be in military occupation. Maybe Israel shouldn't be, violently occupying a group of people. This is going to be the result. This is the logical result. It's terrible. We wish all this stuff wouldn't happen, but Nat Turner happened. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising happened. The African, Nelson Mandela was a terrorist. Nelson Mandela was on the U.S. designated terrorist list till 2008. That's 14 years after the fall of apartheid. So, I mean, what are we talking about? If I don't understand why we are able to understand and see historical context in just about every other place in the world intellectually, but when it comes to Palestine, it's like history started October 7th. Right. We cannot fall into that trap.
I have some questions that I want to throw at you, and I really appreciate you taking these on. And please understand that I'm learning.
I am mad at you.
No, okay, good.
I am mad at you. I hope that you and Matthew McConaughey end up happily ever after.
This is as close as I'm getting to him. I know you can't gather my smile right there.
I am not mad at you.
Okay.
Listen,
I just want to be
I will sit down.
genuine.
I will send you a DVD of the Dallas Buyers Club. I will make sure.
I haven't seen it.
I will send you the Matthew McConaughey DVD collection. No, I am mad at you. Look, I understand that these are questions floating out in the world, but we have to hold the Palestine question in the same standards and light that we hold every other question.
Donald asked, doesn't Hamas say they're there to eliminate Israel? Ask him to open things up when Hamas and others will attack Israel. I mean, do you believe that Israel, I guess the question is, do you believe Israel should exist? I mean, I know that it does. And as you were saying, they are still occupying. But do you think that Israel should exist?
Should exist how?
as a place for the Jewish people?
Sure. Should it exist as a place? Look, should it exist as a place that is interested as a government in making sure there is always a Jewish majority in its state on top of a land that is inhabited by other people? No, that should be an easy question. That's called apartheid. Look, obviously Jews have a connection to Palestine, obviously. Obviously, it's part of their history, obviously. Does that mean that you have the right to come and usurp people out of their homelands? No, but Zionists say yes. So again, exist how? Do you believe that America had the right to exist as a slave-owning country? Did it have the right to exist as a Jim Crow practicing country? Did South Africa have a right to exist as a apartheid country? I mean, again, these are questions, these are rhetorical sort of things that are thrown out that only happen in the Israel context, that don't really happen. We don't ask these silly questions about other contexts. So should Israel be a place where Jewish people live safely? Of course, 100%, no matter where they're from. And by the way, Palestine was a place where Jewish people lived in Israel forever. In Palestine, Israel, Judea, I don't really care what you call it. I call it Palestine. It has a lot of names, like Snoop. I think Snoop has like 5 or 6 different names, and he answers to all of them at the same time. I really don't care what you call it, okay? But we do know that Jews have lived in Palestine forever. And so for almost ever. And so, yes, and so have the people who call themselves Palestinians today. This sort of like battle over indigeneity is kind of stupid. Palestinians.
But it is a lot of history. I mean, people that you say that, but a lot of people go, history. We have been here. Look at history. And that's hard. I mean, you could look at the history of America and be like, I'm sure Mexico has something big to say about that. I mean, there's this idea of land taken over. Let me ask you this. You talk about a one state. You talk about everyone in this land, on this land, having the exact same rights. Do you truly believe that this is, and I know that you say we need people that want to lead this way, but do you really believe that Israel is going to work with the Palestinian people to grant everybody the same rights as Israelis do?
No,
and
I
how
don't
does it
think,
happen then?
I don't think they will. Eventually it just might become a reality that they're pushed into. I mean, do you think the white rulers in South Africa sort of graciously handed over power? I mean, no, it was world pressure. In this country, in 1860, white people in this country killed 600,000 of each other over whether or not slavery was a good idea. So, I mean, I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know. I wish that everyone would come to their senses and make it happen now. Because you know what, Nikki? It would be the most successful nation on earth, not just in terms of pluralism and coexistence, in terms of economy. Oh my God, we'd have the strongest economy on earth. Nikki, a lot of other countries in the world have some sort of natural resource. Do you know what our natural resource is in Palestine? God. And God is a fully renewable natural resource, and everyone wants to come see it. Oh my God. Do you know how much money we could charge at the like Visa? Do you know how much money we could charge? I mean, it's so much, because heaven ain't free. I mean, that's a very old economic principle. Heaven is, I mean, if you're poor, it's free, but if you could pay for it, it ain't free.
You're going to pay for it.
It ain't free. Okay. And so, you know how much money we can charge people? This is where the angel Gabriel told Mary she's going to have the baby Jesus, $100. This is where the John.
I know people that were about to go to Israel right before October 7th.
Oh my God. Do you know how much they would pay? Oh my God. This is where the temple was. This is where they built the mosque. I mean, we could charge so much money. Holy Disney. Okay. It's going to be the most successful economy on earth if everybody would come together and say, this land belongs to everybody. But Zionism has never wanted to say that. The problem with Zionism in Israel is not that it says Palestine is the homeland of the Jews. It's not that it says Palestine is a place where Jews are indigenous. That's not the problem. The problem is Zionism says Palestine is the homeland of only the Jews. And it says that Palestine is a place where only Jews are indigenous. Well, then we have a problem. And that's ridiculous. That's not borne out by history in any case. I mean, even if you believe in the Bible as a history book, when King David took over Jerusalem, he took it over from other people. There were other people there. They're called the Canaanites. They're in the Bible. I read the Bible too. Okay. They're in the Old Testament. Do you know that there are still Palestinian families today that have the last name Kanaani, which means in Arabic Canaanite? So we understand our history. And yes, we have names of people that came from other places too, because Palestine has, like, look at this silly anti-Arab racist comment that just came up on the screen. I ain't mad at anybody for putting it up, but I'm glad that it's there. The Palestinian homeland is Jordan, not Israel. Its leaders kicked them out. Know your history. This is such a lie, right? Who do you think we Palestinians are? You think we came out of some magic? You think we all showed up in the year 700? Palestine has never been a land that's been empty. We know that. It's never been a land that's been empty. Sometimes pro-Israel people tell you all the Palestinians today are people who descend from the Arab Muslim conquest that came in the year 700. Some of us are, but not all of us. The only way that would be true is if Palestine were empty at that time. But it wasn't. We know it wasn't. History tells Palestine has never been empty. So the Palestinians of today are a mixture of all the people who have come through Palestine over time, because Palestine has been a major destination because of its beauty, its economics, and its religious significance. And so we're a mixture of everybody. We are a mixture of Arabs, Jews, Canaanites, Byzantines, Romans, Greeks, Turks, even some Crusaders mixed in there. Everybody came to Palestine, and everybody came in Palestine.
That's a t-shirt. By the way, if anybody needs to know, he's a comedian also, so hence the joke. So I love.
By the way, if you didn't understand that joke, that's totally fine. If you don't understand that joke, that's fine.
Oh no,
I'll
my
say
viewers
it again.
are well aware.
I'll say it again. Everybody came to Palestine, and everybody came in Palestine. So we look like everything. Our names come from everywhere, but they also come from the very first people that lived there, including the Israelites and the Jews, by the way. I mean, a lot of we know from history, again, this is like very clear, right? The Bible is not the only history book in the world, okay? There are other history books where we know that there were Jews. The Romans tried to kick out all of the Jews. They kicked out a lot of them in the year 100, but they didn't get everybody. Jews remained. And other people were also there during that time. Canaanites, Philistines, Arabs were even living in the land of Palestine at the time of Jesus. We know that. King Herod comes from a tribe called the Edomites, who are Arab Jews at the time. Okay, like this is all very clear in history. And so Palestinians, and then a lot of them converted to Christianity because of a guy named Jesus, who's also from there. Okay, also from there, who okay, he's one of us. When people say, oh my God, there's Palestinian Christians, what? We're the first Christians. I mean, we're the first ones. And the Palestinian Christians who live in Palestine today, guess what? They're some of the oldest Palestinians, because it's not like people came to Palestine and converted to Christianity and created villages and cities. No, these are the first Christians who probably were Jews before that.
Yeah.
Okay. And many Muslims who live in Palestine today are from there too. And they might have been Christians before that, or Jews before that. I mean, that's
so much
just like
history
obvious history.
Yeah.
But to say that Palestinians who live there today, all like that racist comment that was put on, they all come from Jordan. I mean, this is so crazy. There are PhDs at Israeli universities today who would tell you, like Jewish Israeli historians, who would tell you that's crazy. Of course, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. Palestine has never been empty. The Palestinians of today are a mixture of all the people that have come through there throughout the centuries. And so we are a mixture of everything. Of course, that's true. But we do know this. In 1948, 800,000 to 1 million Palestinians were ethnically cleansed from their homeland by the new Israeli government. 500 villages were destroyed. This is not up for debate. 500 villages were destroyed. People were kicked out. Guess what? It doesn't matter why they left, by the way. Whether they left at gunpoint, whether they heard there was a war in the next village, so they left, whether Arab leaders told them, hey, leave because we'll beat the Israelis, and then they left. It doesn't really matter why. They have a right to go back. That's clear in international law and in morality. I mean, if you leave your house because there's a hurricane coming and you leave, do you have a right to come back when the hurricane's over? Of course you do. If you leave because a hurricane happened 2 cities away, do you have a right to come back after the hurricane, even if the hurricane never hit your house? Of course you do. If you leave because the weatherman told you, hey, leave, there's a hurricane, and turns out there wasn't ever a hurricane, do you have a right to come back? Of course you do. I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
This is like obvious common sense things. So racist things that come up like, oh, the Palestinians are all from Jordan. They should all go there. This is racism, man. It's ridiculous.
So, and I appreciate you coming on. I'd love to have you back on. People wanted me to have you debate. I don't know if you do debates. We have a friend of the show. We worked together, a colleague, John Rothman. And he does. He does take the Israeli viewpoint of this whole entire conflict and the history. I don't want to do this, obviously tomorrow, whatever, but the door is always open. I appreciate you coming on.
I don't know. I'll tell you what, Nikki. I don't know anything. I don't know anything about Mr. Rothman. I really don't. I'll just say this as a general matter.
Yeah.
I enjoy debates. I'm a lawyer. I enjoy debates. I will debate with anyone who has the same or more educational background as me, because otherwise it's not a debate.
Yeah.
So if they have a master's degree in a related field, at least like I do, or a law degree, at least like I do, I don't know about Mr. Rothman at all. I really don't know. But I won't debate history with somebody who has not officially studied history. That doesn't mean reading a few history books.
No, John Rothman is he's a very educated man.
I don't know him, but
I'll bring it up to him.
I would love to read the resume. But again, I'm not interested in getting in a rhetorical debate.
Right.
I'm interested in getting if someone wants to have a debate, if we can agree on the basics of history. I mean, I will not have a debate with somebody who just throws around. I don't know Mr. Rothman.
Yeah, I know. I won't talk about him.
I won't get in a debate with somebody who simply says, well, all the Palestinians came with the Arab Muslims in the year 700, or all the Palestinians are from Jordan, or all the Palestinians are from somewhere else. This is racist erasure of our history. It's as silly as saying Jews don't have a connection to the land of Palestine. It's ridiculous. I won't get into a debate with somebody like that. I won't get into a debate with somebody who says all the Palestinians are Hamas, all the Palestinians want to eliminate Israel. I know that in 1993, our leadership got on a stage at the White House with the Israeli leadership. They shook hands. I remember that. I was in high school. I watched it. I'm sure you've seen videos of it. The Oslo Peace Accords that were signed on the White House lawn with Bill Clinton. Do you remember that? Do you see that? You've seen videos of that, right?
Yes.
With an Arab and a Jew. They were way shorter than Bill Clinton. I don't know. We're like two of the shortest people in the world, okay? Way shorter than Bill. I didn't know Bill Clinton was that tall. And when I saw him standing next to Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin, I was like, man, we are short. And we're standing and that was a good deal for the Israelis, by the way. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows it was a much better deal for the Israelis than it was for the Palestinians, evidenced by 30 years later, we still don't have a state. How did Palestinians react to that Oslo peace process? We were hopeful. We welcomed Yasser Arafat back to Palestine with open arms, made him the king of Israel or king of Palestine, and so on and so forth. How did the Israeli public react to that deal that was dared to humanize and equalize the Palestinians in some way, even though the deal was much better for Israel? How did the Israeli public and Israeli society react to that? They killed their leader. Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated as a result of him signing the Oslo Accords. And the guy who whipped up the public in favor of his assassination became the prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, and he's still the prime minister today.
He is still.
So I am not interested in hearing like who wants peace. Let's really talk about history. If you really want to talk about history, but you got to be educated on it. So to anyone out there that wants to debate, I'm happy to do it. But you cannot become, like somebody with a master's degree, at least, Nikki. I mean, I think I deserve that. Do you want me? I can listen. My mom can send you pictures of my degrees. Okay, my Arab mom can send you pictures of my degrees.
I believe your background. I just, and again, I really appreciate you coming on. I know people in the comments, there's a lot of strong opinions, and I'm sure you get it all the time.
Sure.
But if you want to know more about him, his website is in the comments. My door is always open. I'll probably be reaching out to you again. I will be to talk about Matthew McConaughey or something else. I don't know, but I do appreciate your time. I learned a lot. I hope people that are watching learned a lot. I'll reach out to John Rothman. I'll see. Maybe we'll do it. Kay says, disagree with much of what your guest asserts, but good conversation, and we need more of that if we really want fair, workable solutions. I agree. I absolutely agree. And Amer Zahr, I appreciate you coming on. The door is always open. Amer Zahr.
It's okay, Nikki.
I know. I'm so sorry.
Medoro.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
I appreciate you.
Listen,
Thank
just
you so much.
an honor of you having me on the show today. I am going to spend the rest of my day rewatching A Time to Kill.
A Time to Kill, yeah.
Also going to watch Killer Joe.
There's a
I'm
lot
also
of good
going to
ones.
watch Failure to Launch.
Oh, come on. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Best rom-com.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'll watch that as well. Dallas Buyers
Dallas
Club
Buyers
with a box of Kleenex. I will watch.
Mud's a good one. Mud's a good one.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I am a movie guy. It's okay. I will.
You're just gonna have a Matthew McConaughey day, which is I can't.
Yeah,
I can't
total. What's the pop movie he did again?
The pop movie.
Wasn't he in a really pop? I don't remember, but
he's in all good movies. If it says Matthew McConaughey, and then you could rewatch him with Jimmy Fallon and My Tight White Pants or whatever thing that he just did on Sunday. Just Google that. That's the latest one.
I'm not gonna
and drink tequila. If you like tequila, he has a new bottle of tequila.
Listen, just so you know, I'm not gonna Google Matthew McConaughey tight white pants.
It's really funny.
First of all, the FBI is already surveilling my computer. And the last thing I need is for that to be added to my file.
Hey, it might get you off the set. You never know. There's a lot of Matthew McConaughey fans.
No, thank you. I mean, he's made some terrible movies too, but so has Amistad. Great movie. I loved Amistad. Amistad is a movie about American history. What?
I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh, Amistad. You got to watch it. Amistad is a movie with Matthew McConaughey, Morgan Freeman, and Anthony Hopkins, where it's about a slave ship that they try to get freedom. It's from the 1800s. Remember, I forget the name of the black actor in that movie. He did he wasn't in a lot of movies. But
I'll have to Google it.
Remember, Give Us Free. You don't remember that movie? Oh, it's great. Amistad, late 90s.
I'll put it on my list. Maybe I'll watch that later.
I'm going straight from Amistad to Magic Mike. And then,
that's an excellent one.
Yeah. Why am I not surprised that you're much more familiar with
Magic?
Much more familiar with Magic Mike than you are with Amistad.
Is good. There's so many. Oh, I appreciate you so much.
All right. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
All right. See you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. All right. And thank you guys for being respectful. I will say, even though I think many of you disagreed with what he had to say, you guys were respectful in your questioning, and so thank you. I really, really do appreciate it. I learned a lot. I think there's nothing wrong with listening to people who see the world differently than you do. Yep. And also that have a lot more skin in the game than I do. And so Sandy's like a pretty controversial guest. I thought he was a very good guest. I'm going to say it. I don't know, Kim. I know you were listening and you weren't sitting in on it, but what did you think?
He's funny and personable, and he tells us the exact opposite that we hear from John Rothman. Right. And so if you've been hearing that, the whole point of Hamas is to get rid of the Israeli people, right? And if you've been hearing that all the horrible stories about hostages, and I had no information, and I don't know where the information came from, that the only people being held are non-civilians. If these are not things that we hear. So I guess it's important to hear those perspectives simply because we aren't exposed to them very often.
Yeah. And that's really why, and I want to learn. I don't think that anybody can gather everything in a vacuum. You know what I mean? We don't learn in a vacuum. We learn through conversation. We learn by listening to people. And that's what I try to do on this show each and every day. And so that's why I really appreciated him coming on. And the door is always open. I'm not going to shut the door on something just because one, I may not be educated enough on it, or it goes against the what I've already heard. And so, yes, you guys, I understand. I understand that there are strong opinions, but there's going to be, and that's just the way that it is.
If you were Jewish and you truly felt that the whole point of Hamas was to exterminate the Israeli people, or you felt that your safety was in jeopardy, right? I guess why would you want to listen to the other side if the other side was calling for your destruction? But what I heard from him wasn't a call for the destruction of the Israeli people. It was for everyone to live together in peace and harmony. Now, as you called out, which I thought was right, is that realistic? Because if they can't share even a border, how are they going to share a country?
Mm.
But there's a lot of conflict here in America. I mean, how are Black people supposed to share a country with the white people that enslaved them? And here we are trying to make it work. Doesn't
And,
always.
I do appreciate,
Mhm.
him trying to relate it to things that I think a lot of Americans have I'm not gonna say a lot of Americans have a better
Mhm.
understanding of, but we can relate to, which is slavery, which is the
Right.
Black experience in our country. I think that when you look at it in that context, people, oh
Sure.
yeah, I totally understand. But then when you
Mhm.
talk about it
Yeah.
with the Palestinians and the Israelis, all of a sudden it becomes something completely different. And
Right.
that point really resonated with me. Let's just be fair when we look at, even in this country, when we talk about reparations, right?
Mhm.
When we talk about even police use of force, redlining, the
Yep.
things in our own American history that have been done to the Black community over the years, we know that doesn't happen in a vacuum. And yet I think that he was really making an excellent point that we can't look at this situation in a vacuum either. Now, he did say, and I kept seeing it in the comments, he did say that what happened on October 7th was awful. Yes, awful. Awful, awful, awful. So for those of you saying he hasn't condemned it, he did
Mhm.
condemn it, but it's not in a vacuum. I think that he's saying, why did this happen? We have to look at the history of why this happens. Lori says, I honestly don't understand why people are saying he's lying. He's not lying about the facts. He's presenting a different view of Israel occupation of Gaza, which is opinion. I really feel like we can always learn by having more conversation. And so I
Mhm.
loved having that conversation. I really, really did. And maybe we'll do it again.
It reminds me of September 11th.
Mm,
Remember when people questioned, and I mean, obviously an awful day in America,
yes.
a day we'll never forget, horrible.
Right.
But the moment anyone said, well, why do they hate us enough to attack us like that? It was, well, you're anti-American.
Mhm.
Don't ask that question.
Right.
There's no reason that could ever justify anyone ever wanting to attack us like that. Well, that doesn't really get to the heart of the problem, does it?
Yeah.
I mean, don't we want to know more about why they hated us so much to come here and do that to us? Now, do I think we have a right to defend ourselves? Absolutely.
Of course. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we can't ask the question or look at our role in history in that part of the world. I don't
Right.
know. I know that's not a popular thing to think about, but yeah.
And again, I'm just, as you're talking, I'm reading the comments. Look, guys, I know that some of you hated him and some of you loved him.
Mhm.
I know that some of you are willing to listen and some of you aren't willing to listen. And that's just the reality of living in this world, right? Like, you're going to talk to people and they're going to
Yeah,
hear what they want to hear and they're not going to hear what you're trying to say, or
yeah.
vice versa. I will send John Rothman a note. I'll let him watch the interview if he wasn't watching live. He's going to be on tomorrow. I don't imagine, Kim, that he's going to be watching it that close. I don't know if he's going to want to comment on it tomorrow. But again, I wanted to have Amer on solo because
Mhm.
we have John Rothman on solo. And I
Every week.
wanted to give people, every
Mhm.
week. And not saying that we talk to John Rothman about what's
Right,
happening in Israel
right.
every single week. We do not. We
Mhm.
talk about politics. He is a political expert completely. But I thought that this was a fair conversation, and I hope that you guys agree. And so it is what it is, people, and I hope that you enjoyed it. And I know it's not what we normally do on the show. That was an extremely longer interview than we've ever done, and I think that it's worth it. I really do. And so I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in and listening. Okay, well, I know we have headlines, but let's check
Mhm.
in with time for something completely different because he's been waiting, and I appreciate him waiting because
Yeah.
usually he's on a half hour earlier. Is Jefferson Graham, who is in a car right now. Hello,
He's in the
Jefferson.
car. How you
Hey.
doing?
How are you?
I'm okay. Let's see. We'll get it set right there. How's that? Yes, I'm on a photo shoot today, and
Oh, where are
I'm
you?
I'm in West Hollywood.
Oh, look at
It's a
you.
corporate job today, and the sun is out and it's beautiful. So I wanted to seize the moment.
So
And
a
yes,
corporate job. What
yes.
does a corporate job mean?
Corporate job is that a city hired me to take pictures, and
Okay.
I'm running around taking pictures for them. And
Awesome.
yeah, I'll be here till around 7 or 8 o'clock tonight.
Just
So it's
taking
good.
pictures of whatever you want, or do you have to take pictures of celebrities or buildings, or what are you taking a picture of?
I have a list.
Oh, look at you.
I have a list.
You know, stalk people.
It's in
and
my
take some
pocket,
people.
but I'm also doing exploring with my camera and doing fun stuff as well.
Perfect. Okay. Well, have you debuted this video that you sent me?
No, this video is debuting right now on the Nikki Medoro show. The first time we've ever done anything like this. A new episode of Photowalks TV, brand new for the viewers and listeners of the Nikki Medoro show.
Okay, now of course I thought I had it up, and now so continue talking about. So this is when you went to Petaluma to visit with Kim, correct?
Yes, it is. It all stems back to one day on this show. We were talking about how bad is San Francisco, and we both said it can't be as bad as they're saying. And so I arranged a trip to go up there. You were a little busy at the time, but one day we're going to get you. And I went to explore San Francisco and see if it was as bad as they say. And of course, it wasn't as bad as they say at all. It was great, except for the Tenderloin. And as part of that trip, I took a little detour up to the beautiful neighbor city of San Francisco, 45 minutes away, to go up to Petaluma and to hang with Kim and her son and this crazy lady at the one of the gift shops.
All right. So let's debut this video. I found it. I got it all ready to go. Here is Jefferson Graham, again, Photowalks TV, the debut of his visit to San Francisco.
It's about 45 minutes from San Francisco. You enter another world of Victorians and really cute buildings from over 100 years ago.
Look at that.
In this little agricultural / historic town of Petaluma. Now, I recently stopped into Petaluma with my iPhone 15 Pro, and I spent 2 hours walking downtown photographing just what caught my eye. I always find it a really useful exercise to just get out of the car and roam around with your camera, in this case, the iPhone 15 Pro, and just see what pops, what really speaks to you, what your eye captures. And that's what I did, and these are some of those photos.
And a lot of these pictures we saw when you debuted all of them. Oh, look at the mic company.
What's the deal with Petaluma and chickens?
Petaluma is the egg capital of the world. So basically their symbol is the chicken. The Petaluma has a butter and eggs parade every year that's huge,
Kim's favorite event.
And super fun. And so everywhere you go, you'll just see pictures of chickens or a stuffed chicken in the yard, in the window, or whatever. California, Petaluma, egg basket of the world. Ta-da.
You could tell a lot about the city by reading their murals and looking at what pictures they have decided to showcase.
Right.
So let's run them down.
Okay, let's do it. So we have our clock tower right near the old Masonic building and right over an old, what is now shops. E is the Petaluma River and the rolling hills. The T is an old Victorian house. The A is, it looks like the McNear building.
It's downtown.
It looks like the old McNear building.
Right next to the movie theater.
Right.
Right. Which is now a concert hall. L would be for eggs.
That's right. U is the old vintage bank downtown, which has been an antique store. And the M is an old mill. Then we're back to our chicken.
That is all. So I'm gonna.
You could edit now, and if they want to see the rest of it, they can go to Photowalks. YouTube.com.
There you go. I just wanted to see my Kimmy Kim on there.
Well, there's more Kim. There's more Kim to come because she gives us a good little history lesson about Petaluma and why everyone should come visit.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, and again, I have to make my way up there. Do you go to, I mean, I know that you're often down in Southern California, but the North Bay is just gorgeous, but it's one of those places living in the South Bay. I never seem to make my way up there that much.
I want to go to Point Reyes. I want to go to Bodega Bay. I want to go to Santa Rosa. I want to go all over. And that's
Healdsburg is a great place. The town of Sonoma is beautiful. Yeah.
It's awesome. Now, do you guys have I know obviously you have clubs and things like that. See, the difference is it's like, I'm not going to go to a Warriors game in Petaluma. I'm not going to do that in North Bay. So you don't have anything like that.
The only thing that would really bring you here event-wise would be a wine tasting event.
Okay.
Come on up.
Get hammered and then drive all the way home.
No, you have to stay the night.
Couch.
Yeah.
What about
exactly.
eggs? What about the butter and egg festival?
Yeah, that just
It's
sounds
kind
riveting.
of, I would say it's more of a local deal. I mean, we appreciate it up here, but it's a very small hometown parade. It's a lot of tractors and fire trucks, and it's good. It's good.
It's cute though. I will say this: whenever people talk about, oh, I want to live in a small town or a smallish town because of things like the Butter and Eggs Festival, right?
Yeah.
Where people line up their chairs, and then people, in big cities like me, it's like, oh, how cute that is. Although I will say San Jose does some cute things like that. But
people think Petaluma's small because it has that feel and
yes,
flavor. There's 70,000 people that live in this town.
Wow.
So it's got, I mean,
compared to San Jose, sweetie.
Okay, that's ridiculous,
so
right?
That is
But
so
that's
small.
not a small. I mean, you think of a small town as like, oh, I know everybody. I can't possibly know everybody here.
Oh, but
I live in a small town, 35,000 people.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know everybody?
I know a lot of people.
Walks down the street, is like, "Hi, Sally. Hi, Bob. How you doing?"
I know all the members of the city council by first name basis.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people in San Jose. I do not know nearly everybody in San Jose.
And if I recall,
ridiculous.
isn't San Jose the number 3 city in the state of California?
Oh, is it as far as size?
I believe so. I believe it's LA, San Diego, San Jose, San Francisco, and then we start getting into Sacramento, Fresno, stuff like that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, we're a pretty big, we're supposed to be a suburb, but it's gigantic. Yeah, Vicky says that's small, Kim. That is 70,000 people is a small town. But I love it. I love the kind of walkthrough that you had there. So what's coming up next for you? So you're doing this corporate job. What
Doing
else
the corporate job today. The next episode of Photowalks TV is I'm reviewing those video glasses that we spoke about a few weeks ago that Kim has no use for. And I have a lot of pros and I have a lot of cons. But the pros, I have been having a really good time photographing in places where you're not supposed to photograph because I've got the video glasses on where they can't yell at you and say no cameras.
Oh,
And that's good. And then some slice of life video that is kind of fun. And so that will be premiering on Saturday.
that is awesome. So Photowalks TV, you could just put that into YouTube and you'll find Jefferson Graham. It's a great place to go for all the iPhone tips and tricks, phones, and of course he shows off his amazing photography. All right, well, have fun at your corporate gig, my friend.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you next week.
You'll put the link to Petaluma in the description here.
I will indeed.
Thank you.
Of course. All right,
Bye,
Jefferson Graham,
everybody.
Photowalks TV. Thanks, Jefferson. Yeah, and I will put it in the show notes when we're done recording this. So don't worry about that at all. Okay, you know what's funny? When we were talking about small towns, everybody is talking. My town was 40,000, but it feels like 1 million with the traffic. Jim says I grew up in Albany and there was less than 5,000 people and I knew everybody and had kids in school.
Oh, wow.
Would you rather grow up in a town where you knew everyone and everyone knows everyone's business or a place where you can kind of get lost?
I think small town. And the reason for that is this sense of community that you don't necessarily find in a bigger city.
Right.
Because you don't have the connections with people. I like living in a town where if I saw any one of a number of kids smoking or vaping on the street, I feel like I could roll to a stop, roll down the window and go, "Does your mom know you're doing that?"
Kim would be in her heaven.
Like and I would expect people to do it for me too. If they saw Julia somewhere doing something she wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, but I mean, isn't there a negative of everybody knowing everybody's business? Like that's my whole thing.
There's a give and take with that, right? So you're going to lose some, I don't know, some freedom to do whatever you want because you know that you know everybody and you need to behave. But on the other hand, again, that sense of community is something that I think is huge, especially when someone's in trouble or needs help or needs to be supported, or you see it when there's a Christmas tree lighting or there's an event like the Butter and Eggs Day parade that everyone comes together for a common goal.
Right.
So. Yeah.
Eric says, I know people who grew up in Niles and the gossip is outrageous. I would not have wanted to grow up there. See, that's my thing. It's because And
What are there, like 20 people in Niles?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if, for instance, growing up as a kid, and I love that he brought up growing up there, because kids make mistakes and reputations can follow you. And so then all of a sudden, you're the quote unquote troubled kid, or whatever adjective you want to use. And when you grow up in a small town, it can be harder to get away from that. Like, you can't start new or start fresh because everyone knows everybody's business. On the other hand, everyone knows everyone's business. And so people are, like Kim says, looking out for each other. I don't know. I grew up going to a small-ish high school, although it's totally expanded, and kind of a small-ish elementary and middle school. And yeah, everyone was up in your business. And I know my mom had to, deal with that in some instances when her pain in the ass daughter was not behaving properly. Not that I was that bad, but I'm just saying it's hard when people are constantly judging you, and that, I would say, stereotypically happens in smaller towns.
Niles, California, by the way, population 7,761.
That's small.
That's small.
I think some high schools are bigger than that. That's
Yeah.
crazy. That is crazy. Thank you to Bongo. Bravo to both of you and John R. in absentia. Yeah, John joins us on Fridays. He started it a few weeks ago, and we love having John on. And again, I'll let him know about the interview that I did. I'm very curious about his take on it. Yeah. I can only imagine he's just going to disagree with it all. So, again, if you missed any of the conversation that I had with Amer Zahr, you can rewatch it, or you can just totally delete it from your mind. And I know that some of you will be doing the same. But I appreciate you guys. I really, really do. All right. Do you have a couple of quick headlines that you want to do?
I have always headlines for you.
Okay, perfect. Let's just do a few headlines, because I know that we had a really, really long, and I know that there's stuff happening all the time around the world.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
Well, we know that both air and highway travelers can expect delays with back-to-back snowstorms forecast throughout the United States. At least 3 inches of snow forecast from as far west as Wyoming all the way to New York today and tomorrow. The second part of the storm is set to hit the Midwest, the Northeast, and the Mid-Atlantic, with accumulations of 6 inches in some areas and more than a foot of snow in higher elevations. E. Jean Carroll has concluded her testimony in the defamation damages civil trial against former President Donald Trump. Her testimony began yesterday and wrapped up today after a redirect from her attorney and a recross-examining from Trump's attorney. Trump is attending his mother-in-law's funeral in Florida, and today he was not in the courtroom. Frustration between the White House and Israel reportedly growing as conflicts in the Middle East continue to expand. The Biden administration wants Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to scale back his country's offensive in the Gaza Strip. In addition to the war between Israel and Hamas, Pakistan carried out retaliation strikes against Iran, and the U.S. hit more than a dozen Houthi rebel missile sites in Yemen late last night. There's some good news from the Labor Department. We need some good news after that. There were 16,000 fewer initial jobless claims last week than in the previous week, and the overall total is the lowest since the fall of 2022. While harsh weather and the new year could have been factors, experts say the reports show that the labor market is pretty solid. And lastly, Friday's NBA game between the Golden State Warriors and the Dallas Mavericks is being postponed. The NBA made the decision after the death of the Warriors' assistant coach, Dejan Milojevic, during a private team dinner. The 46-year-old joined the Warriors coaching staff in 2021, but he was beloved. He died of a heart attack while at an away game.
So, I don't, again, he's young. He was in his 40s, right? I think
46.
He was in his 46.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear about people in their 40s having a sudden heart attack, not that he was a small dude, but I would assume active, right? I mean, you can't not be if you're the assistant coach on the freaking Warriors. Just awful news. It's just really sad. I was listening to a bunch of news reports yesterday of people just really kind of getting emotional, obviously, especially being at a team. He was like at a team dinner, and just awful. My heart goes out to his family.
And that was it.
Yeah. Can I just say one more breaking news that
please.
I just saw while you were talking?
Yeah.
This is from ABC7's Dan Noyes. I don't know how I feel about this.
I love Dan Noyes.
Dan Noyes has exclusive. I've
Yes,
obtained court documents that show the LA Innocence Project is represented convicted wife killer Scott Peterson. They're asking for evidence that may point to others in the death of Lacey Peterson and their unborn son in December of 2002. Wow.
Hey, if they have evidence that shows he's not the killer, then how horrible that he would have been in prison for something he didn't do. I don't think that's the case.
I don't think that's the case. You don't I don't know.
Ask the questions, right? Ask the questions.
So back in 2022, Peterson denied a new trial over the murder of his wife. At the center of the request was whether a juror lied when she told the court she'd never been involved in a domestic violence case. I hate these kind of things that could spur a whole new trial. I understand bias in a jury, but geez, you know what I mean? Like, it's not as if he's saying he didn't do it. So it was denied. The judge denied Peterson relief in his appeal based on that. He will not get a new trial. Now, Scott Peterson, of course, has claimed that he was out fishing when his wife disappeared. This case doesn't seem to want to go away. It really, really doesn't. I don't know if there's nothing better to do than to try and get out. What you said, though, is absolutely correct, Kim. God, if they prove,
show me the evidence
that somebody else did this. Wow. Right. I don't know, man.
I mean, I don't think they can, but hey, again, just like having the conversation earlier, I'm open to the proof. So you bring the proof and we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah, exactly. Sandy, one of the assistant coaches for the Warriors, had died from a heart attack.
Warriors, the Golden State Warriors basketball team.
Warriors, yeah. Jim's like, he was fishing the same place they found the wife and child's body a year later or whatever it was.
Yeah. The Berkeley Marina.
I remember, and I've said this before when we've talked about it on KGO and here, when the Lacey Peterson, the whole thing was happening and we didn't think that it was Scott Peterson, but then the affair with Amber Fry came out, right? I remember trying to be really fair. I said, men have affairs all the time. Wouldn't it suck to be having an affair and then your wife get murdered, right? Like, people are obviously going to look at you. They always look at the husband and the boyfriend anyway, because oftentimes it's the husband or the boyfriend. But I was trying to be fair. I remember it. But then when all of this evidence, you know what did it for me? And what I'll never forget is him calling Amber from the memorial for Lacey Peterson and acting like he wasn't there. And she knew. She already had been contacted. And that whole thing, no. Innocent people don't do that. If you did not murder your pregnant friggin' wife, you would be beside yourself. I don't care if you're effing around on her. I don't care. So no. It's going to have to be some solid evidence, like literally somebody admitting it for me to not think that he did it. I'm sorry. I just think that he did. And this is the thing with people that murder their spouses, because one, they don't want them to find out, or they're going to take, the prenup's not whatever. Like, just don't murder me. Just leave my ass. Right. Like, can I just live? Like, you can F around on me. You don't have to murder me. Like, we don't need to take that step. It's not that serious. Just go. Right. Just go. I don't understand people that feel like they have to murder their spouse to get away with an affair. It's just go. People do it all the time.
There's some statistic I read once about women that are pregnant being more at risk. So it could be that maybe he didn't want to be a father, felt the stress of becoming a father, whatever it may be.
Then leave my ass. That's what I was saying. Then leave. I don't need to die because of your insecurity, your philandering, whatever. Like, just leave me. Like, she had family. She would have been okay. She would have had her kid. Like, it didn't have to be murder. And I just don't, obviously, I don't understand people that kill anybody, but it's really, it's a sad story. It really, really is. And I think the fact that she was so cute and she was so pregnant, like so pregnant, it just added to the horror of it all. And, but do I think that Scott Peterson is innocent? No, he's guilty. And until you prove otherwise, his ass should rot in jail. Sorry. Or prison. I'm sorry.
Let's end this newscast with a science-y story. How about that?
Yeah.
Researchers have used the James Webb Space Telescope to
Okay.
find the oldest black hole ever observed.
Oh.
The team of scientists made the announcement Wednesday saying the newly discovered black hole is thought to be more than 12 billion years old. The team says the discovery has changed what they initially believed about black hole development, and they described their findings as a giant leap forward.
Okay, can you explain to me, and I
No,
don't mean this to
I
be
can't.
minimizing. You're like, I can't, whatever question you're going to ask, Nikki.
Whatever science-y question has come in my way, no.
It's not really a science question. It is an ignorant question. I'm going to say this. Why do we care? I know that we like it tells us about the beginning of our universe and
Right.
all those sorts of things. And I know like
It
just
answers-
that aspect. But why?
Yeah.
Why does that? How does
It
How does
answers
that
the
impact my
questions
life?
about and leads us more to more answers about who we are, how we got here, how we developed, how our planet developed, how our world around us works, how the universe around us works.
So it's just cool. It's just cool to know. Like, but how do I use that information to make my life better? I know that's an ignorant question. It's just to
No.
know. But okay, like we're
In
spending a
your
lot of money on
day-to-day,
this.
probably not. But in the scheme of science and research and knowing things, it's interesting.
Oh, Chip Franklin would be ripping me a new butthole for that question. How dare you? I'm like, okay, I get the geeky part of it, and it's really interesting, and stars and energy and how we are made up of the stars that started the whole universe. That stuff, awesome. What do I do? What how does that impact my life right now?
How does this help me?
Is my tax dollars going to this? Because I need money. Like, so that's the whole thing. It's just
Speaking of helping me and us, this report is sponsored by you, and we really do appreciate your help. The Nikki Medoro the NikkiMedoroShow.com is our website, and that's where you can find all the information as to how you can help. The super stickers are still open, and we're flying today. So let's do that because Spencer Jaffe, $5
Start
super
off with a
sticker.
$5. Thank you. Then Kay with a $10 during our conversation. Jim with $5. Thank you, Jim. Doug, love seeing Doug with a $5. Marilyn also with a $5 super sticker. You guys are so generous today. Chad, $5. I hope John Rothman was watching because I'm interested in his take on the interview. Well, we'll see. Bongo, bravo to both of us. And a $10 donation. Thank you. You guys are awesome. We can't do it without you. And like Kim mentioned, just go to the Nikki Medoro Show and sign up for our Patreon. You're adorable. We love it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. I really do. I'll pull it. You could share it. You can not share it. You can give me feedback, the comments. I just love you. Thank you, Lulu, for a $5 donation. You guys are so awesome. I really do appreciate you guys. So tomorrow and Monday, I'm gone. I'll be at KCBS doing the morning drive. Kim McAllister will be here. John Rothman will be here tomorrow. I leave it up to you whether you want to do that. Bring it up, but I will let John know, of course, about the conversation and ask him to watch it, and maybe he'll weigh in, maybe he won't. We'll see what happens. But I loved having the conversation, and thanks guys for keeping it respectful. Tim Sika will be on tomorrow as well, and then I'll be back on Tuesday. All right, I love you guys. Have a fabulous time with the Mark Thompson Show, and of course the After Party Live. Bye.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You're proud, like a beautiful person. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.